Joining us now, also in the studios, Representative Tom Miles. He serves in the State of Mississippi House of Representatives for District 75. That includes Rankin and Scott Counties. Morning, Representative Miles. Thanks for coming in, sir.
Good morning and Happy New Year.
Yes, sir. Same to you. So you guys have been in session about a week and a half now, right?
We have, and we have hit the ground running.
Yeah.
We're excited about today. It's going to be a historic day in the Mississippi House of Representatives.
A lot of activity. So historic. What's going on that makes it historic?
Well, it's historic. Yesterday in the committee meetings, we had two big pieces of legislation that are going to move our state, we feel like, in a positive manner. We took up a teacher pay raise bill.
Yep.
And then we also took up the income tax bill. You've heard Speaker Gunn going around the state talking about. So two great pieces of legislation that we think that will put our state in a good position to move us forward in a lot of ways. And when we pass both of these today on the House floor, we're going to send them to the Senate and hope that they'll concur and we can move on. And this is going to be a great day for our state, we feel like.
Yeah. So the Senate, Senator DeBar in the Senate, a press release came out of Lieutenant Governor Hoseman's office earlier in the week, I think Monday, as a matter of fact, about their plan, their bill for teacher pay raise, and now we have one out of the House. Some subtle differences, I would say. What are your thoughts about that?
It is. We feel like ours is a little better, of course. One of the complaints that we were hearing on their teacher pay plan was that it didn't really help teachers that have already been invested into the system for a long time,
okay,
that it was more loaded heavy on the front end. Ours, I think, takes care of both of those problems as well, and it seems like the teachers and the principals that I've talked to and gotten feedback from across the state, they seem to be more in agreement with our plan than the Senate's plan.
You want to kind of give us a rundown of the basic provisions of the tenets of the bill, the House bill?
Basically, what it does is going to give every teacher in the state of Mississippi a $4,000 raise. It's going to move our starting pay up to not only above the southeastern average, but among the national average for starting pay as well. So we feel like that'll encourage more people to go into the teaching profession, and roughly that'll raise the starting pay for teachers in Mississippi over $43,000 and some change a year, which, like I said, that puts us number one for starting pay in the southeastern average and the national average. Also, basically what it'll do is it'll give our teachers assistants, who play an important role in the classroom as well, especially in our elementary classes, they don't get paid a whole lot, so we're going to give them a $2,000 across the board raise.
If I could interrupt you right there, I appreciate that. Was that not one of the concerns with the Senate bill, that it didn't address the teachers' assistants to any extent?
I think so.
Okay.
I think so.
Continue, please. Yes, sir.
So we feel like this just puts us in a good position. We know that there's a teacher shortage across the state and also across the country and our region as well. We feel like that paying them more, that we'll have more teachers, more people going into this profession. I talked to a superintendent friend of mine last night, and his theory on it was that he said, Tom, what you're fixing to do to us is give us more options when we go to choose. He said it's going to help in twofold. So we're going to have more people going into the teacher profession. And he said, and also it's going to make that teacher in the classroom step up their game, because they know that if I have 10 applicants for this third grade teaching slot, was the example that he used, that they better get, better do a better job themselves, because they know that I can replace them. And he said it's just going to make the education field as a whole and give a better quality, education experience for us. Yeah, sure.
So the $6,000 bump in starting salary for a bachelor's degree, it's a $6,000 bump, right?
On the starting pay.
On the starting pay. Mm-hmm. And then everything kind of flows from there. Presently, teachers receive an annual step increase. It's what's called a step increase, which is $500 a year. Most districts supplement that with some additional pay from the district to combine with the state pay of $500. And so I think that stays the same. But has there not been a change in what occurs at the 5-year marks as a teacher progresses?
And I don't really have the full details on that, but they've really went into, and we released a thing yesterday to all the media sources where it breaks down from 0 to 35 on the year experiences, and it gives a good breakdown. But it's going to be a good across the board debate. Like I said, every teacher is going to get a $4,000 increase, and then and as they can have their add-ons from the supplements as well. And another thing that was brought up yesterday in the committee meeting as well was, we have a great retirement system.
Yeah.
So that also encourages them. And then if we pass this here, then we turn around and we pass the income tax bill as well, they're going to get a raise from that as well.
Yeah. So we should also explain, Representative Miles, that the teachers are categorized based on the degree that they have. So, and it's categorized using the capital letter A.
That's
so
right.
An A is a bachelor's degree, double A's master's, triple A's education specialist, all the way up to 4 A's, which is a doctorate. So there are different pay scales for those levels.
There is, and the more education that they have, the higher pay that they get is, and with the years of experience. And they also have the certified, and you remember when Governor Bryant was in office, he passed the certified teacher add-on thing as well, and they have the opportunity to make that. And I think that's $8,000 or $9,000 more dollars.
I think that's right, yeah.
So there's an opportunity if they're serious about that as well. I'm also working on a bill this year that I just got it dropped yesterday to help bring more retired teachers back to the classroom.
Okay.
Right now, any teacher can work for half of the year and they can draw 50% of the salary if they go back. But the problem that you have is that at the end of after they've done their 50 days, the school district still has to find a school, another teacher.
Yeah.
What I learned in my study from this and the research from our attorneys in the House side was that any retired educator can go back and teach in the classroom, but they can draw 25% of the salary.
Okay.
So I don't think a lot of people really knew that. So, for example, if you had a principal, and if he was making $100,000 a year as a principal, and he retired, he could go, or she retired, they could go back into the classroom and draw $25,000 a year because that's their high four, and then they could still keep the retirement going. I just don't think that that's out there enough.
Yeah.
But what they don't have is the health insurance. And anybody, being in the private sector from 55 years old to 64 years old, health insurance cost them an arm and a leg.
Yep.
But what I proposed in this bill here was that we would do two parts. One, it would allow the school districts, if they choose, to pay for the health insurance for that teacher to come out of retirement to do that, and they could keep the 25% salary if they wanted to.
Okay.
And then the other part of it would be is we would do a 2-year emergency contract, which would allow teachers to come that have retired for just a 2-year time period, and maybe that this payment scale can step up as well.
I see.
And that would help fill that void that some of these school districts are
So
having.
if they haven't been retired from it for more than 2 years,
if they're a retired teacher now and they're just sitting out there drawing their retirement, they could come back into the classroom for 2 years and draw the salary.
I got you.
And not affect the retirement system.
Not lose their PERS benefits, right.
And then the other thing I'm trying to accomplish is to let teachers and retirees know that you can come back into the classroom and still, if you wanted to, draw 25% of your high four and still not affect your retirement.
And that's PERS rules for all state employees, right?
It is for all state employees, but I think a lot of teachers just don't know that.
I agree with you.
But if the school district would have the flexibility that they could pay for their health insurance, that's the biggest concern for many retirees, that I can't pay that $1,200 to $1,500 a month health insurance.
Yeah, to stay at the 25% level, that would almost be consumed totally by health insurance.
Exactly. But if the school district chose, which it would not cost any state funds, they could do that if they wanted to put a good teacher back in the classroom if they had a hole.
Yeah, that makes sense. Interesting. So do you feel like there's broad support in the House for that?
Well, we're going to talk about it, and I'm talking about it with you today first.
Sure.
I just dropped the bill yesterday, and I had to work with the attorneys to make sure that we got the wording right where it wouldn't mess the PERS system up and everything.
Yep.
And did a lot of research on it. I think it's worth having the conversation on.
Sure. Okay, so we got and the other thing about the House bill, I believe, Representative Miles, is that the increase, the $4,000 increase, would occur this year, essentially. It occurs in the first year when it would be enacted. And the Senate version is it is reported as a $4,700 average increase would occur over a 2-year period, I think, with a $1,000 bump occurring in year 2. So just kind of subtle distinctions there, but it looks like you guys are headed for some joint conferences to hammer that out and get something done.
I think teachers in Mississippi should be excited one way or the other because we're talking about a teacher raise for them.
Yeah,
a raise for
I think you're right. Can you hang around? We'll talk about tax reform and other stuff. We got Representative Tom Miles in the studio on midday. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Hey, SuperTalk Mississippi. Representative Tom Miles is our guest in the SuperTalk studios. He represents District 75, and that incorporates Rankin and Scott counties. We appreciate him coming in the studio today. All right, so let's turn our attention, Representative Miles, to tax reform. This has been the highest priority, as Speaker Philip Gunn has indicated. Since the first bill went through the House and he presented it, he was heavily involved in that himself, of course. But yesterday, a new bill was filed and passed out of committee, I believe. Is that what's the status of that right now?
Yes, sir. It was passed out of the Ways and Means Committee, and it's on the calendar today, and we're expected to take it up today as well as the teacher pay raise if everything goes according.
Okay.
It's House Bill 531, if anyone's looking for it on our website online, and it's called the Mississippi Tax Freedom Act of 2022.
Yep.
And as you said, the Speaker has went around the state listening to the concerns that we had on the bill that we passed out of the House last year, and has addressed, I would say, all of the majority of the concerns, or if not all of the concerns that was there.
Yep.
And has even added a few more things I think that a lot of people will be happy about. Basically, what it does is everybody asks how we're going to pay for it.
Mm-hmm.
What it does is it raises sales tax from 7% to 8.5%, and I think that's less than it was last year.
2.5%. It was going to go to 9.5% under the prior bill.
Under the prior bill.
Yeah, so it's been reduced by 1%.
And if you're, for example, I was in Dallas this past weekend, and sales tax in Dallas is 8.25%.
Yeah.
Right there. So that kind of gives you a comparison to surrounding states there. So it's not out of line there. But the good things that it does is it's going to reduce our grocery tax. Everyone has talked for years about how the grocery tax is a regressive tax on everybody, and you shouldn't tax food. It's going to send that down from 7% to 4% when it's fully implemented. And I think what most people are going to be excited more than anything is it's going to reduce our car tags by 35%.
Yep.
So you're thinking about going to buy your wife a new vehicle, $40,000 car in most places is going to run roughly around $1,000 on the car tag for the first year. You take 35% off of that, that's going to save you $350. And I think that's huge because I hear a lot of complaints about how our car tags are in Mississippi. And most of all, the plan makes the cities and the counties whole.
Yeah.
And I want to speak about something, Gerard.
Sure.
When we talk about this, I think the only thing I've seen wrong with this plan, I think a lot of people are making it too complicated when they're explaining it.
People as in citizens?
Well, maybe people that are explaining it.
Okay.
I think sometimes you have to make this simple for people can understand it. And basically what this plan does is, when passed, if you make $40,000 a year, it's going to put $1,300 a year in your pocket.
Yep.
If you're a family, husband and a wife, $80,000 a year. If you make $80,000 a year or more, it's going to put $2,600 a year in your pocket.
Yeah.
And here's the fact. Everybody's like, well, how much is it going to cost me? And everybody and I'm in sales, you're in sales. They want to know the bottom line. You've got to spend $86,000 a year to make up for that. So there's no way possible that you're going to be doing that because we've taken care of all the problems. We're not raising the tax on automobiles. We're not raising the tax on farming equipment or logging equipment. We're not raising the tax on tobacco or mobile homes or any of the other things that people were concerned about. So,
commercial utilities, didn't mean to interrupt, but that's something else that was brought up. So it doesn't apply. You'd
have to spend $86,000 a year to reach that point. And if you're only making $40,000 a year, you're not going to be spending that much.
On taxable commodities, right, that would incur the higher sales tax. Yeah, I totally agree with you. I actually put some models together last spring when all this was going on and had folks send me their actual data, kept it confidential, of course, and ran it through a model and came up with the same and discussed that at the hearing. But I agree, because I think a lot of people don't take into consideration that much of what they spend their household income on, their just normal month in, month out expenses are not subject to sales tax, such as rent, mortgage, and insurance, and utilities and other commodities like that. So gas is subject to the fuel tax, but not sales taxes. So
right.
You're right. I agree. And so we've got to, I think, really explain it properly.
Well, I think sometimes we're talking over and trying to get too technical and talking over people and stuff, and they just don't get it. But it's simple enough.
Fair enough.
It's $1,300 a year. It puts it back in your pocket for $40,000 a year, $2,600 a year on a family of $80,000. And then, of course, if you make more money than that, you're exempt on that portion too. And I think a lot of people miss that point too. I've seen studies, and you probably can back me up on this, that it's going to grow the GDP for the state right around $400 million or more a year. So that's going to put more money back into people's pockets so they can spend. There's been a physical note that has been done on this where it shows that we can afford it as a state, and it's going to actually make us money in the long run.
Yeah.
When you start sometimes in debate about going to give a tax break for this one or that one, but this is actually a tax break for the people that are paying taxes. If you're going to give tax giveaways, give it to the people that are paying it. Yeah,
totally agree. There's a lot of always debate surrounding any kind of adjustment to taxes. And when you say, well, we gave the tax breaks to this segment of the population, well, that's because they were the ones paying the taxes. People that don't pay any taxes, you can't cut their taxes unless you just send them money. Talking primarily at the federal level. In Mississippi, we have a fairly flat tax system, and so once you take the exemption out, you get to $10,000 of taxable income. Everything over that's taxed at the same rate for everybody, 5%. And so the major change in the income taxes that provides for lower income taxes and ultimately phases it out over time is that the exemption increases to $40,000 for a single and $80,000 for a mayor. That's the crux of the bill that addresses the income tax aspect, and of course that would result in less tax collections from income taxes to the state, and that's why these other adjustments are made. So I think it's a good bill. I like it.
I like it too, and I think that it'll put us more competitive when we're looking at, we've lost population in our state. We've got other people that are moving out, trying to recruit more people to come in, and that's one of the things people look at, if you have a state income tax or not. Yeah,
it's estimated that just in year one, about 48% of Mississippi taxpayers would no longer pay income taxes to the state of Mississippi. And that's just out of the gate. As time goes on, of course, the goal is to totally eliminate the income tax, and I don't know if that's done through. I think it is.
It's based off of growth.
Yeah, and I think it purports to increase that exemption is how it achieves that, to the point where it just totally phases it out. And if we continue to experience revenue growth the way we are, we're on a run rate of another $1 billion surplus this year, having had one last year. So, you think this has got a chance in the Senate?
I think anything is possible if people get behind it, and if they want to see it. I'm talking about we've met the concessions. It seems like
agree.
Everyone that was complaining about how it might affect them, I think we pretty much have met those. And I think when the word gets out, especially on this reduction on car tags, people have been asking, how can we reduce car tags to help? I think that's going to help people a lot.
Yeah, I agree with you. And so the trade-offs here were that instead of taking the grocery tax from 7% to 0, which is what was contemplated and included in the original bill, we're going from 7 to 4. But that enables us to cut car tags, essentially.
Right.
And so, anyhow, I think it was well thought through. Honestly, I received a summary of this from the Speaker's office yesterday, knowing that we were going to be on the program today talking about that. I appreciate that. And I think this was just well designed, and let's hope this gets the traction it needs in the Senate. We get it to the governor's desk, and he signs this, and we start on the path to eliminate income taxes in the state of Mississippi. So appreciate your work on that. All right, we got this $1.8 billion of money coming down. Before we talk about that, I want to give you a chance to discuss the bill you were sharing with me. We got a break right here. Can you stay?
Sure.
I want you to talk about that. I want our listeners to hear about what you got planned for first responders. I think that's important. We'll be right back here on Midday. Stay with us. Midday Super Talk Mississippi. We've got Representative Tom Miles in the studio. So, Representative Miles, you were sharing with me off the air something you're working on, a measure you're working on to benefit our first responders, I believe. Tell us about that.
Yes, sir. You may remember back in the, early fall, there was some discrepancy that came out whether if the state would cover our law enforcement and first responders and firefighters under the line of duty death benefit. Matter of fact, it went on so far as our president of the Sheriff's Association, Sheriff Rushing, had to ask the Attorney General for opinion if it would be qualified or not. And that's been the argument back and forth: is it qualified or not? And then you look at the federal statute. Before President Trump left office, he signed the law that said that all law enforcement and firefighters would be covered under the line of duty for COVID benefits. And the way I've worked on this legislation for the last 10 years since I've been in office, working to increase the death benefits for our law enforcement and firefighters. We didn't have our EMTs in there to begin with, and we added that along the way, and we went from 65 to 100,000, and we work on something every year to try to improve it. So we felt, and I'm in agreement with the Sheriff's Association, that if the federal law said that it should be covered, we felt like that our state law should be covered as well. And since that time period, it seems like we're getting traction. The Speaker's office and the Speaker's even made comments about that he feels like it should be paid as well. So, and then when you get into that conversation, we also have other healthcare heroes as well. We have our nurses, we have our doctors, we have all of our frontline workers are out there. So we proposed a bill that would cover all of our first responders, law enforcement, firefighters, and our other healthcare heroes that would get that line of duty death if it was due to COVID during that time period. We're dealing with, we have $1.8 billion from the state on these federal funds to pay out things. Roughly, I've heard Senator Polk throw out the numbers. He's got already between $8 and $9 billion worth of requests.
And we was on yesterday talking about that.
And and there's not enough money to go around to reach everything. But this is something that many of us feel that is important to take care of our heroes that have been out there trying to protect us, and hopefully we can get this done, because it won't bring back their family members, but it may help them along the way, because the federal benefit right now already includes and saying they were going to do that, and that's what we hope to accomplish.
Yeah, I agree. So how do you feel that'll go? It should be a no-brainer, should it not?
You would think it would be. We hope that it will be, but everybody's got their hand out trying to get a piece of that $1.8 billion. This, on mine, we're still compiling the numbers. We asked for $20 million to cover all that, and I think that should be enough to cover all of that. I know that's a lot of money, but in the big picture of things, it's just a portion, just to help honor those people that have lost loved ones.
So speaking of the $1.8 billion coming our way from the American Rescue Plan enacted by President Biden just about a year ago, last March, what are you hearing on that? I mean, like you said, I heard the same from the lieutenant governor who was on the show a couple of weeks ago, and the speaker. They all said, yeah, we got requests for $7-8 billion. Not surprising. We only got $1.8 billion.
Well, I'm from a rural area, and I kind of agree with Chairman Bounds. I asked him, we're looking at ways that we can get more internet connectivity and high-speed internet to these rural areas of the state. I said, what do you think we're going to get? He said, well, I asked the Speaker for $500 million this year and $500 million last year, and he said, I know we won't get it, but to me, I wish that we could. Our number one priority would be to connect Mississippi as a whole, because you continue to look at the brain drain, and our students, they go off to Oxford, they go off to Starkville, they go out of state to college. They're not coming back to these rural areas that they cannot connect.
Yeah,
and it puts these areas in a bad thing, and I'm hoping that we can spend a lot of that money to work to get more internet in these rural areas is my main priority, and I think that's Chairman Bounds' priority as well, and we're going to try to push for that as much as we can.
One thing I would ask along those lines is, and I've asked everyone that's come on the program from the legislature, would it be possible to get a map that would just show us where do we have what we call in the sales business white space. Where do we have areas that are not connected, that are not lit up, or that for which there are no plans? And with respect to that, and to show our penetration rate, essentially, of connectivity across the state as it relates to households, addresses that could be connected. But then further than that, okay, how much is it going to cost? Because we already got a bunch of money for this. Now we're talking about more money, and maybe that's what's required, but it sure would be nice to see, well, okay, this is what's left, and this is what it's going to cost to get that serviced.
We passed that legislation that gave the power companies the opportunity to go in that business, and those that have chosen
a couple of years ago
have took advantage of the last pot of money that did that. But like in my district and some of these districts across the state, in some of these areas, some of the power companies, they chose not to do that because they said they're not in the internet business.
That's right.
And that's fine because that's not what they do. But what you get left with is you still have those rural areas like that are getting left out.
Sure.
And the kids can't connect, and businesses are not going there, and people aren't going to move in those areas.
Yeah.
And
while I agree with you that certainly would be an added incentive, I'm not sure that alone is going to get people to move to those areas. It's certainly something that eliminates that as an objection. No disagreement with you on that. What else are you working on, Representative Miles, in the 2022 session?
One of the things I'm very passionate about and has been since I've been elected is our state parks.
Okay.
We know that they need an upgrade, and there's a lot of debate. Last year, some people had an idea that they wanted to quit on the state parks and kind of wanted to go the privatized route. I've had the mindset with other legislators that we don't really want to privatize them because that wasn't what state parks were set up for. Some of the guys that have private groups, they do a great job, but the state parks were set up to give an opportunity for any man or woman that wanted to take their child fishing or camping, that it could be an affordable asset. And if we're honest about it, we have just not give them the focus that we have as other states have in the years. Last year, there were several bills that several House members and myself proposed. One was proposed that Representative Curry had, that we would take a small portion of the lottery money to help shore up our state parks every year, take $5 or $6 million a year so we could rehab our parks. Chairman Bounds had a bill that would take the sales tax that is collected in the state parks and divert that back to the parks for maintenance and upkeep, which I supported both of those. And then another bill that I filed this year again is that we'll take a small portion of the advertising money that we do for the state to help promote. Out of sight, out of mind is a lot of times.
Sure.
If you don't go out to our state parks, you forget how beautiful they are.
Yeah.
And, so when we don't have that revenue coming in from using them so that it's a double whammy there. But we started an organization back in my hometown called Friends of Roosevelt State Park, where we try to do small events, and we partner with the local chamber to just promote it at home. Because everybody says, oh, you're from Morton, Mississippi. Oh, you have Roosevelt State Park, and they talk about how beautiful it is.
It is, yes.
But a lot of times we take advantage. We forget about it because it's there at home. But then what we've done is we've had little events in the park at home to bring our locals back out. And they're like, man, this really is nice. I forgot how nice this was. So we've got our numbers back up there locally. They're at home just doing some small things like that. But we want to see that. And then there's another bill the Sheriff's Association is kicking around is the Cadillac converters on these vehicles are becoming up missing, and I think there's been some research.
I've heard that too.
There's some research being done on those to see if we can come up with something maybe to tighten the penalties on that.
A little more teeth.
A little more teeth, kind of like when they were still in, the aluminum and the things before. But it's going to be a busy session. We're excited about today. Tune in at 2:00 to the House side. We're going to have a historic day with this teacher pays and the income tax.
Before you go, redistricting. Looks like we've got the congressional redistricting in the rearview mirror. What about state redistricting? Where do we stand on that?
There's been an open process with that. Chairman Bennett has met with any legislator that wanted to meet with them, and your concerns over the districts. A lot of districts had some lost numbers. A lot of them grew, so they're making those things as well. He set that up to have an open process with that, So
yeah. Well, some work to do there. I know the congressional redistricting due to federal requirements and rules was a sense of urgency. Had to get that done. Were you pleased with that in general?
Well, I think the way that it turned out wasn't much choice. We looked at the maps ahead of time, and they just had to make it fit best they could.
Yeah, I think you're right. Representative Tom Miles, appreciate you joining us today, and look forward to the rest of the 2022 session. I'm sure we'll be talking to you soon. Take care, sir.
Thank you.
We'll be back with more talk on middays. And